All right, my friends, today we're going to be making this black hole effect. I had a ton of fun making it. We use just very simple textures, very simple techniques in order to achieve this really complicated looking effect. But I assure you, it's pretty straightforward stuff. In order to make this, I have a Google Drive link for you, and it's going to have these three assets in it. We're going to have just a PNG of the textured waves, and we're going to have another waves texture as well, and then this tiling noise asset. We're going to need that for the black hole texture. You can find a link to that in the description. So once you have that, you'll just want to paste it into your Unreal project that you make. And this is just a blank old project here. So nothing fancy going on. And the first thing you're going to want to do is enable Niagara if you've never done that before. So you're going to go to Edit, Plugins, click on Effects, and make sure that you have this Niagara plugin effect. We don't need the Niagara extras, just the base. And when you enable it, it's going to ask you to restart. Just go ahead and restart it, and then it should kick you right back. No big deal here. All right, so let's get started. We're going to make a bunch of textures first. So I think that would be super helpful. And what I'm going to do here is we're going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this Particle Systems. And then inside of this folder, we're going to make a new folder called Materials. What we're going to want to do is I'm going to grab these two. I'm just going to drag and drop them into here. And I already have the tiling noise inside of this project, but in order to get the tiling noise in, you can't just drag and drop it. You would have to close down your editor, move the tiling noise asset into your contents folder, and then restart your editor, and then you'll have it. I haven't found like a really clean way to import those UE4 assets, so that's just what we have to deal with. So in order to make textures out of these, if you've never done any of this kind of texture work or material work before, these are just image files. Nothing fancy going on in here. Just bring it over for you. Made this in GIMP. Took just a few minutes. You could definitely make your own. Nothing too fancy. Oh, we'll close that. So in order to make a material, we're just going to right-click and hit create material. And we're going to call this M_textured waves. There we go. And we're going to open that up and get into the material editor here. Give ourselves a little bit of room. This type of material is just very straightforward. There's going to be not a whole lot going on. The black hole effect's got some more stuff going on, but don't worry about it. I'll walk you all through it. The best thing about these kinds of textures is that we are just going to set this to unlit and additive. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it translucent for us. You can see it pretty much just disappeared right now. And we're going to right click in this open space. We're going to need to pull our particle color in because we want to control the color of these waves by the particle color. So while we're in Niagara, we want to be able to say, like, I want to make these waves green or purple or blue or whatever. And that's what this particle color node allows you to do. And then we're just going to multiply them together. You can multiply by just hitting right click and then typing in multiply. Or you can hold down M on your keyboard and just left click and you get a little multiply node. And then we're just going to take all the channels from the texture, all the channels from the particle color, and we're going to feed it into the emissive color. And that's it. That's all we need. You should have something that looks kind of like this. You can see it doesn't really look like much, but it is what we need. All right, so we're going to save and close. And we're going to do the same thing for this waves. We're going to right-click again, create material, M_waves will be the name. I'm going to open it up. Again, same thing. Move this out of the way. Let's see, move up here, right-click, type in particle color. I think I went a little too fast on the last one. Sorry about that. In order to get rid of this very quickly, you can just hold down Alt and just click and gets rid of it. And then we're going to hold down M, left click, get ourselves a multiply node, hook it up to all the channels, put this into the emissive color, and we want to make sure that this is set to unlit. whoops, unlit and additive. We should get that. There we go. That's what we're doing right there. And now for the black hole, we're going to need the tiling noise texture. But we're just pretty much going to make this thing from scratch. We're not going to make it from an image. I'm going to kind of show you how to pull in texture samples from the material editor. So we're going to right click out here in this empty space. Click on material, M_black hole. And this is going to give us an empty material. Now, we want this to be unlit as well. And opaque is fine. And the first thing we're going to want to do... Oh, let me pull up my notes here. There we go. First thing we're going to want to do is pull in our texture sample. So we're going to type... you're going to right-click out here, type in texture, and you pull a texture sample in. And if you've imported the tiling noise correctly or successfully, you should be able to come down here to this texture and type in tiling noise. You'll see this tiling noise 3 is the one that we're wanting. There we go. And we're going to use a function called the Fresnel function. And you're going to right-click out in the space and type in FRE, and you're going to get the Fresnel. We want the Fresnel function. It's got a little extra stuff on it for us, a little extra parameters that we can mess with. And we want to have this Fresnel function face the camera at all times. So if we rotate around or anything like that, that the black hole is always looking at us, essentially. And how we can do that is we can grab the camera vector and plug it into the camera vector. And then we're going to want to create a power parameter so we can modify this power later on, just in case if we want to do some fine tweaking. So we're going to right-click and type in scalar parameter. We're going to call this Fresnel power. We're going to hook that up to our power. And we'll set a value on that a little later, I think. Kind of get you showing everything here. So we're going to be doing a lot of multiplying and adding. So we're kind of just give ourselves some extra space here. All right. Now, our texture sample isn't doing anything right now. Even if we were to multiply this stuff together, we really don't have a whole lot. To make it a little more interesting, we're going to apply something called a panner, and that is going to do pretty much what you think it's going to do. It's just going to pan up and down the texture, depending on what values we set. So we want to right-click, get a panner. We're going to hook this panner into the UVs. And then for our coordinate, we're going to get the screen position. There we go. See this panner here. We're going to set the Y speed to 0.2. So that's going to tile it in the Y direction. You can set these kind of however you want to. But we're just going to leave it at 0.2 for now because I kind of like that. And then now what we're going to do is create some more parameters so we can modify this texture down the line. We want to be able to control things like the black hole color, like the actual black part of the black hole. We also want to control the outside color of the black hole as well. So in order to do that, we're going to need to create a particle color node. Particle color. Oh, there we go. And also another parameter as well. So we're going to right-click, scalar parameter. And we're going to call this glow intensity. There we go. And we're just going to multiply these two together. More multiply stuff. Ooh. Don't want our lines to cross if they don't have to. There we go. Keep it nice and clean. So now we have this multiply here. And we're going to take this, multiply this stuff together. There we go. And then we're going to multiply this together. I'm going to hold down M and just left click. I'm going to multiply that together. There we go. And we also need a black hole color. So I'm going to hold down the 3 key and get a 3 vector. And we're going to right click on this and convert to parameter. So there's lots of different ways to create parameters in your in your materials, we can just create a parameter by just right-clicking out here and just typing parameter. We can get all these different parameters here, or you can right-click on a node and convert to parameter, stuff like that. So we're going to call this parameter Blackhole color. And then we're going to add these together. So I'm going to hold down the A key, left click. I'm going to add and add. All right, now we're not going to get anything because we haven't modified any of these, any of this power or any of this glow. So I want to change this Fresnel power to like a 15, I think. And this glow, I think I had it set to 25. There we go. That's looking pretty good. Yeah. Now, if we wanted to change these parameters later on, we don't have to dig into this material, and I'll show you how to create a material instance where we can basically just make copies of this material and modify anything that we want that we set as parameters. So, oh, looks like I set this to A. Didn't need to do that. So let's change that back to Blackhole color. And I'll go ahead and modify some of these for you. So if we wanted to say change this to like a red, and we'll set the saturation up. You can see here we're changing the black hole color, looking pretty cool. Set that back to black. And to show you that this particle color is working, I'm going to hold down 3, left click, and we're just going to hook up this color node, or this 3 vector that'll act as our color node, into this section. And then we will change this to say like a pink, some kind of pink color. There we go. So we can see as we're changing this color, this outer ring here is the color is changing. And we want to control that with the particle color. So when we're in the system, we could do all kinds of things. We can change its lifetime, color over lifetime, that sort of stuff. It can be very dynamic when it comes to this color. So let's hook it back up. There we go. And that's it. That's all we really need to do here for this black hole. There we go. We're going to click on apply and save, and we're going to close. And I want to create a material instance out of this. So we're going to right click on our newly created black hole material and just select create material instance. And this name I think is fine. It's just going to be m_blackhole _ instance. And we can open it up. Now, we have all these parameters over here on this right side. And those are the parameters that we set inside the material. And we can override and get into these parameters, sorry. And then we can change these colors to whatever we want, just like we did inside of the material editor. So let's say we wanted to make it, let's make it a blue. Yeah, we're just gonna come over here to like this blue color. There we go, just to show you. And then we will save it, close it. And just to show you that we can have 2 of the same, we could just modify the material instance without modifying the base material, is that I'm going to just, I dragged and dropped in just 2 primitive spheres. And we're just going to drag our black hole material and click it right on there. And you can see we have our black hole, and then we can have our blue black hole right next to it. So we can modify the instance without modifying the base. And then we can come in here, and let me pull this out of the way. And we can change this Fresnel power. We can bring it down a little bit here so we can see the differences. So you could really tweak with this if you wanted to. We'll set that back to 15. Let me bring it back in view for you. There we go. So I want to change this. If you mess with colors quite a bit and you just want to revert back to the default values, there's this little arrow key, or this arrow button here. You can just click it and it'll revert back to the default. There we go. Let's close and get all that out of the way. All right, that's it for materials. So looking pretty good. Now we need to get on to making some Niagara emitters, and then we're gonna make a whole bunch of them, I think 4 or 5 or something like that. And then we're gonna compile them all into a system, and that's gonna be our black hole. So let's get rid of these things here. And inside of our particle systems folder, not in the materials, we wanna right click, go to FX, and Niagara emitter. And this Niagara emitter that we want to create at the start is this upward mesh burst. Click OK. And we're going to name this PEN for Particle Emitter Niagara. underscore, and let's start with the black hole. So we'll call it black hole, and we'll open it up. Now yours may look a little different than mine. You may have like a weird background. That is from the preview scene settings options. And if you don't have a preview scene settings, I believe that's in window, and you'll see preview scene settings in here. And we want to uncheck this show environment. This may be what you're looking at the start. So I like to have the black background personally. And the control scheme inside of here is a little strange. So in order to get back to the normal UE4 control scheme, you want to click in this upper left-hand corner, click on the drop-down arrow, and just uncheck this orbit mode. And now you can hold down right-click and sort of pan around and then use WASD to move yourself around. There we go. Unfortunately, you have to set up that, that orbit mode every time you open up an emitter. So hopefully they change that at some point. So we have a lot of stuff going on in here, and we need to turn off a whole bunch of things. And I like to keep my stuff pretty organized. So I'm going to be doing this quite a bit. You're going to right-click up here at the top and just select Collapse to Headers. And so we can get now a nice overview of everything that we're working with. And the black hole itself isn't going to be moving at all. It looks like it's moving just because the size of it is going up and down, but there's no velocity or anything like that being added to it. So we're just going to trash the add velocity in cone, and that's going to delete it. And we're also going to remove the solve forces and velocity one. And there we go. Okay, now let's go ahead and change our mesh renderer. So we're going to unfurl, I suppose, our Niagara mesh renderer properties. And then under the particle mesh, we're going to click, and you're going to type in sphere. And there's quite a few spheres in here. The one we're looking for is out of the engine basic shapes. So if you read the path, it'll say engine basic shapes. That's the one we're looking for. There we go. And then for our material, we want to choose the black hole instance material. So you have an extra one in here. Let's see, which one do we want? That one right there, right? Particle systems materials, there we go. There we go, there we go. Looking pretty good so far. Now we could start tweaking this to make it look more like a black hole. So the first thing we're going to want to do is change up the scaling. So we're going to, right now it's set to a 2:1:1 scale. We're just going to set it to just 1 across the board. There we go. So now it's just going to face the camera, already looking better. The spawn burst instantaneous. We don't want to spawn 100 black holes. We just want to spawn 1. There we go. Since these were stacked on top of each other, you couldn't really see all the other ones, but we don't need more than 1 for right now. And we're also going to need to change the color and let's see, we're going to change the color. Let me pull up my notes, sorry. Yeah, okay, so we're going to change the color, and we're going to change the mesh size scale, which we have down here. So with all these emitters, we want to use them more like building blocks. Like modular pieces, so we can reuse them later on in different projects and that sort of thing. So we don't want to do all of like our hard animation that's going to be tied to the system inside of the emitter. We kind of want to just build like a pretty vague emitter. That way we can reuse it. And how we're going to accomplish that is just by setting on the mesh size scale, we're going to start the time at 0 and go at a value of 1. So we're going to set the scale to 1 at the start. And then for all these other time steps, we're just going to say something like on the time here, we're going to say 0.2, go to value of 1. And at the end here, we're going to say time 1, a value of 2. Oops, value of 1. There we go. So now what we have here is just a black hole that's spawned. It's pretty static. And then inside of any system we put it in, we can really tweak the mesh size scale. All right. Now the color. We want a static color on this. So we're going to go ahead and just go to your particle update color. And we're going to remove. We're going to click that little, we're going to click this little reset to default value button. And it should revert back to this thing right here. And we're going to keep this at just a white color. Again, we want this to be pretty modular, so we're going to change the color inside of the particle system. And we're just going to double check some of these here. Okay. We definitely don't want the lifetime to be varied. So let's go ahead and just click on reset to default value. And our particle lifetime, let's set it to 5. There we go. So we just have a nice static. The mass, we don't have a whole lot of velocity or anything like that flying around here. So the mass isn't too important. But I want to go ahead and keep the mass in there just in case if you want to add forces to it and make it very, very easy. So we're going to reset this one to default value as well. And we're just going to set it to like 1.2. All right. I think that'll do it for our black hole. Pretty simple stuff. No big deal. We're going to do the animations and stuff like that inside the system. So we're going to hit compile, apply, and save. And let's minimize that. Oh, we forgot the most important part, which is we need a thumbnail. So we're going to click on thumbnail and click apply and save. There we go. Because we're going to be making quite a few emitters, so we're going to kind of want to see them at a glance. So let's start with the waves, and we're going to build a base wave emitter, and then we're going to copy. We're going to inherit pretty much a bunch of the properties from that wave emitter, and then just tweak a couple of things. So let's start again. We're going to right-click, FX, Niagara emitter. We're going to do another upward mesh burst. Click OK. This one we'll call particle emitter Niagara waves. That'll work. We'll open that one up. Again, you should be on orbit mode. It'll always default you to orbit mode. So we're just going to make sure we uncheck that and kind of get myself into view here. There we go. I'm going to right click up here at the top, collapse to headers, get a nice overview of everything that's going on. Then up here at the life cycle, I'm going to set this to 1, I think 5 will work for our next loop duration. Spawn burst, instantaneous. I don't think we're going to need 100 of these waves. I think more like 3. And let's go ahead and actually set our renderer so we're not just looking at these arrows here. So we're going to map all of these textures to a plane, and then we're just going to rotate the plane around to make it look like it's like swirling around the black hole. So under our mesh, we're going to type in plane. And we want to try to find the same plane as we have been using, and that is the engine basics shapes plane. So we're going to click on that. And so if this thing disappears, no big deal. You want to click up here to show, and we want to show the grid, and we should be able to find. Ooh, we're just 100% disappeared. Well, we should apply a texture to it. Let's go ahead and apply our waves texture to it. So in our materials, we're just going to click the drop down here, type in m_waves, and we'll select our waves texture. I'll let that load. Should have something in here. Where did it go? I'm going to compile, apply, and save. I've had an issue with working with planes and it just disappearing for some reason. So I'm going to close this, open it back up. There we go. I'm going to click on show me the grid, take off that orbit mode. I'm going to see if I can find it again. Let's modify some stuff first, and then we should be able to find it. So, oh, there it is right there. Okay. So at least we know we're in the right area. All right. Oh, there we go. There we go. Now we're coming back. Let's get rid of this velocity in a cone. Let's get rid of our solve forces and velocity. There we go. We don't need any kind of velocity or anything like that going on. And now we're going to set some rotation as well. If I can get my particles back. Let's hit compile. There it is. Sometimes you got to hit compile and do all that kind of stuff. And let's see if we can get it back. There it is right there. So let's get a nice overview shot so we can really see what we're working with here. And I'm going to go ahead and clamp our timeline down. So if you don't know, you could just click and hold this timeline and you could just move it around if you want to. I'm going to clamp it to about 2 seconds. So we're going to hover over 2 seconds and you're going to come down here and click on this little bracket. And that'll shade off everything on the right of it. And then we'll just have a loop between those 2 sections. So we can have it happen real fast. Okay. So let's go through. We have our spawn burst done. We want to set a initial rotation on these. And we're just going to be worried about like an orbit rotation. So we're going to be worried about the yaw rotation. Kind of go over the differences or how to conceptualize those in your head a little bit more concretely anyway. So in order to add a new module to particle spawn, we're going to click this plus sign. Make sure you're lined up too with the particle spawn, because sometimes if you're like up here, you know, if you have everything collapsed and you click up here to like emitter update and you're looking for like rotation, nothing's going to pop up and it's going to be kind of frustrating. So just make sure that you're lined up there with particle spawn. We're going to type in rotation. We're going to set an initial mesh rotation. And we're pretty much just concerned with the yaw here. And we want there to be a range on this yaw. We don't want it to just spawn at a static value. So for example, if I just set this to like 180, it's not really all that interesting. We want these particles to spawn at least somewhat different every time. So in order to do that, we're going to click the little drop down on yaw. And we're going to type in range. And we're going to select uniform ranged float. And we're going to go from 0 to 360. Ooh, 360. There we go. There we go. Looking a little bit better there. And then we also want to rotate this on the yaw axis as well on the update. So it looks like it's spinning. That's going to be important as well. So under the particle update, we're going to click the add new module. And we're going to type in rotate. And we're going to set the mesh rotation rate. And again, we're going to select the yaw. And we're going to set this to, I think we're just going to set this to a constant value. We're going to say negative 360. There we go. So now we're going to get this kind of spin. The direction of your spin should be determined by your texture. So if it looks like your texture is spinning clockwise, then you'd want to set that to the positive end. And if it looks like it's, if your texture looks like it's going to collapse on the opposite end on counterclockwise, then you want to set it to a negative. And for things like yaw, pitch, and roll, if you want to conceptualize this a little bit easier, think of it like holding your phone in your hand, and you are just rotating your phone in the sense that you're like spinning it in your hand. And to do a pitch, you'd want to move your wrist closer to you or away from you. That's the pitch of it. And then the roll is you moving it side to side. So you have your pitch, yaw, and roll. So for this, we want the yaw to spin, since we want it to look like it's orbiting the black hole. All right. So we still have some other values that we need to fix up here. We need to change up this lifetime, I think. Yeah. Okay, so let's set this to a constant value. We're going to reset under our particle spawn. We're going to go to particle lifetime and reset it. And we're just going to make this a constant value. And for the mass, again, we don't have any velocity or anything like that being set in here. So we're just going to reset this and just set it to a constant, just in case if you want to add some velocity in here, it's just going to be in there for you. There we go. It's looking pretty cool. And we definitely need to set up the color. So let's go to particle update color. And what we want is a color from curve. So under this make linear color from vector and float, we're going to click this drop down and go to color from curve. Now, because of the way our material is set up, it's an additive material. And what that basically means is anything that's black is going to become transparent. So we don't have to worry about opacity at all with this texture or with this material. So we can just click down here at the bottom. This is all of our opacity down here. We could just delete it. And we want to set this to, we're going to set this to fade to black, or fade its transparency down. So we're going to set this time to like 0.9. 0.9. And we just want to set this to black. So, so I moved a little fast there. Sorry about that. We're going to right click on this, choose the time to 0.9, and then choose color. And under this value, we're just going to set it all the way down to make sure we're set to black. And then over here on the left, I'm going to right click and add a key to all curves. I'm going to delete the opacity, right click it, set the time to 0. And this color, I think we'll just leave it as white. So we'll set this value here to just white. Just as white as white. And again, we're going to build modular pieces that we can reuse later on, with the idea that inside of this particular black hole system, we're going to change things like the color and specific things to this system inside of the Niagara system, and not exactly in the emitter. Okay. Let's change up this size scale a little bit, maybe. Maybe add in. So we definitely want a few things to happen with this. And because we're going to be making so many emitters based off of this one, I kind of want to use it as a template. So under the mesh size scale, we know we want our rings and whatnot. We want pretty much everything in this system to start from a 0 on the scale, pop into existence, and then scale down into nothing. So at the end, I'm going to I'm just going to left click, select the time to 1, and then put the value at 0 at the very end there. So it's going to balloon up, and then it's going to collapse back down. And we'll tweak these values a little later on. Okay, so I want to make sure that our initial mesh rotation is doing exactly what we're doing here. I think we're okay. 0 to 360. Maybe 360 to 360. I think that'll work. Yeah, let's do that. I don't know. We can tweak that a little later. Okay. I think we're all done. In here. Let's compile, apply, and save it, and do the most important bit, which is take a thumbnail, apply and save, minimize that. We should get a little weird looking thumbnail right on. Now for the next two, we're going to be making emitters based off of this wave emitter that we just made. So same process as before. We're going to right click, visual effects, or FX rather, and we're going to select emitter. Ooh, excuse me. And we're going to select copy an existing emitter from your project content. And in here, we're going to be selecting the waves emitter. I'm going to select OK. And this one is going to be called particle emitter Niagara _ we'll say this is the textured waves. And there's only a few things that are going to be different about this wave. So we're just going to flip the texture, and that's pretty much it. And we'll set up everything else inside of the system. So the default viewport here, because we're working with planes, and the way the default viewport kind of is set up is that you're looking directly on to your particle system. So because we have a plane, there's no z-axis, so we don't really see anything. It's actually, I believe it's like up here, but it's on a flat plane, so you can't see it. So you can very easily lose your emitters when you're working with planes. So a couple of tricks here. Turn off your orbit mode. Click on show, go to grid. You want to hold right click, move your mouse down just a little bit, and just tap S a couple of times. There it is. Oh, there it is right there. And we'll just kind of hit the W, see if we can find it. Oh, there it is right there. A little annoying to find, but you're working with planes, you can't really see them, so you got to make sure that you get the right orientation and whatnot. Okay, so we want to just change the material that's on this to our textured waves. So we're going to come down to the Niagara mesh renderer properties. Go to M, go to the material M _ textured waves. Particles, there it is. Let that load in. There we go. That scaling looks a little off to me. What's going on? Oh, that's because the scaling here. And I bet you that this waves one also had this. Yeah, that's what was causing that. So we want to change the scale to make sure it's just one across the board. We don't want to stretch it or pull it or anything like that. That's why it looked a little off. All right. So for this one, I like it. We're going to change a bunch of stuff inside of the system. There we go. And then let's make another one, except we're going to call this one the vertical waves. Ooh, let's open this back up. Well, we need to get a good thumbnail. Got to do the most important part here. Let's see. Where'd it go? Thumbnail. Save. That's a terrible thumbnail. Oh, well. All right, let's make a new emitter. And we're going to copy an existing emitter again. And we're going to select our waves. Particle systems, waves. And we're going to call this one particle emitter Niagara vertical waves. We're going to open this one up. This one's going to be a little bit different. We want this to be the swirly waves that are around the black hole. So in order to get that, we're just going to modify a couple of things. Again, we're going to get lots of practice here in trying to find our plane meshes. So we're going to come up here, turn off our orbit mode, click on show, go to grid, right click, move your mouse down just a little bit, tap S, move your mouse down a little bit more, tap S. Oh, there it is right there. And we're going to kind of hone in on it. Ah, all right. Now, we want to set the initial rotations so that it's going to look like it's wrapping around the black hole. In order to do that, we're just going to remove this yaw here, and we're going to set these pitches and rolls to some values. And I can kind of show you here, 180 to 180. We should do some ranged ones. So we'll click on that little arrow, go to ranged, uniform ranged float, 0 to 360. There we go. Come down here, make another uniform ranged float on the roll, 0 to 360. There we go, getting a little crazy. Scale is still not doing very well, but that's okay. I'm gonna make sure to double check that scale. For some reason, mine isn't inheriting. That's okay. All right, what else do we need to change? We're going to change the pitch and roll, and the rotation rate is still at a 360. Don't think that is updating the way it should be. Oops. Let's find it here. Okay, now we're looking okay. So let's kind of scrub through here and make sure that we're doing what we want. Oh, I know. Let's up this count here to something like a 12. There we go. There we go. We can really see it happening here. There we go. So we're getting like this random chaotic rotations and stuff like that happening, and we're spinning them all on the yaw, so it looks like that they're still orbiting. I like it. I like it. Let's see. Lifetime. We could mess with that a little later, I think. Let's move on to the stars. Stars add a nice little touch to this, and I think is probably my favorite part of this whole system. So we're going to make sure that we're going to compile and save. Oh, we need to take a thumbnail. Thumbnail. Perfect. Perfect. Apply and save. Oh, look at that. I know exactly what that is. All right. Let's make a new emitter. Last emitter, I promise. And instead of copying an existing one, we're going to select a create new emitter from the emitter templates. And we want these hanging particles. Click OK. And we're going to call this particle emitter Niagara _ stars. Open it up. And so by default, orbit mode, by default, basically what we have here, if we click this bounds box, is we have a bunch of sprites that are just spawning in a very big area, and then there's a little bit of noise happening to them so they can move around, and that's pretty much it. Ooh, going a little crazy. What we want, though, is to have an orbiting set of stars. So in order to do that, we want to remove the sphere location, because we don't want any Z on this. We want them to be orbiting around our black hole. So let's trash the sphere location. And I could barely see those. Let's go ahead and set the variable on by what is it? The sprite size. There it is. We're going to set this to like, I don't know, let's say 5 to 10. Really want to be able to see them. There we go. And we're going to adjust that a little bit later. There we go. So we can kind of just get a nice pan here. So we can really see what's going on with this box volume. So you can see here they're spawning in a box. Pretty straightforward. But we don't want any z-axis on it because we want it to be flat and then rotating around our black hole. So let's remove the z. You can see now we're on a nice plane. Looking good. And this is a bit big. So we'll say this is 175 to 175. Pretty small area. There we go. There we go. Let's see. Sprite size. The lifetime. The lifetime we're going to set to like 1 to 1.5. There we go. So you have like that twinkle kind of thing going on. And all right, let's mess with all the noise. Let's do that. This curl noise here we don't want, so let's delete. And we don't need any drag force. Let's delete that too. It's pretty much just going to spawn and twinkle in and out. And we're going to add a new module to particle update, and we're going to find the vortex force. You can see here it's giving you an error, and it's saying that that there's unmet dependencies. And the unmet dependency is the solve forces and velocity, which may seem a little strange because solve forces and velocity is sitting right here. But you have to think about these emitters as a stack of instructions that execute from top to bottom. So in the particle update, we're going to do the age, then we're going to do the scale, set the color, solve for forces and velocity, and then apply a vortex force that's out of order. We want to solve the forces and velocity last. So we can just click on Fix Issue, and that's just going to move it up on the stack. But you can also click this header and just move it around if you want to. Also another way to fix it. So right now, we don't really have anything going on because our force just really isn't strong enough. So if we did, let's say we did like 500. See, a little something is happening now. But actually what we want here is to set this to like a negative 500. And this pull amount, we want to set this to like a 50. There we go. Oh, that's not happening again. So we're going to uncheck it. Check it again. There we go. There we go. You can see here now we're getting that pull in for our black hole pull. That's what we want. And now let's get that spin and that rotation going on. So we're going to go to Particle Update, add new module, and we're going to look for Vortex Velocity. And again, unmet dependencies. We're going to fix the issue. You see it's already happening up here. Swirl's looking already pretty good, just straight out of the box. Liking it so far. This fall off, I want to change that to about half of what it currently is, so 0.5. And then the velocity amount, change this to a negative 35. So we're going to get this slower rotation, which I like quite a bit. And this force amount, with the way that we're going to be doing this animation, we want to ramp up the force amount over time. So we can either change it here, or we can keep this a little more modular and just change it in the system. So we're going to change this in the system itself. I'm going to leave this here. And now these aren't looking too much like stars because their color is a bit off. We can trash this color over lifetime, and we're just going to set them with a color, I think. Be the best thing to do. So we're going to come up here to particle spawn. Oh, sorry, I deleted the color module from the particle update, and then we're going to go to particle spawn, go to color, set the color, and we're going to make this a very bright, very, very bright color. So we're going to say 30, we're going to go 30 and then 20. There we go, very big glow kind of going on here. And now, you see, this may be a bit much. You can be like, well, these are really big stars. It's because our sprite size is so big. So we'll set this down to like 0.9 to 1.5. There we go. So we have like this twinkly small stuff kind of going on. I dig it. I like it. All right, let's set ourselves a good thumbnail. Apply and save. It looks kind of like stars. All right, so now we're going to combine all this stuff together and really tweak our values. So let's make a new system. I'm going to right-click, go to FX, go to Niagara System, and we want to create a new system from a set of selected emitters. And you're going to find all of your emitters in here. I have duplicates of everything because I had that example at the start. So I'm just going to really try to make sure I don't grab my old ones. Let's see. Particle systems. And you're just going to select your emitter and then click the add, the green plus down there. And particle systems waves. We want the textured waves as well. There they are. We want our stars. Particle system stars. And obviously the black hole. Let's see. Particle systems. There we go. And then we're just going to click OK. So make sure we got the black hole, the stars, the vertical waves, the waves, and then the textured waves. Quite a bit of stuff. And for this, we're going to call this PSN, Particle System Niagara, _ black hole. There we go. You can see straight out of the box here, we're looking pretty good. And we're going to turn off this orbit mode. Let's set this to up here, kind of go in and out. And I'm going to collapse all the headers and make sure that this is all spawning correctly. It doesn't look like it. So let me make sure. So when you're dealing with multiple emitters, things can get kind of noisy pretty fast. And a good way to isolate effects is either by selecting this toggle. So if I just wanted to see this black hole, I could just look at it here. Or if I have everything selected, I could just click on this little person here and it says enable isolation for this emitter. So I should be able to just see the black hole. There we go. Okay, so we'll worry about if these things aren't showing up a little bit later. I kind of want to get the animation done and whatnot. So Niagara has some problems sometimes when you're importing emitters and it not applying correctly, and also the a lot of the renderers just don't seem to show up when they're supposed to. So we'll just kind of worry about it and troubleshoot it a little bit later. Okay, so let's select our black hole. Make sure that we have our black hole selected, and we could verify that the black hole is selected up here at the top. And we want to create this expanding black hole that then collapses back down. And how we're going to do that is just through this mesh scale, mesh size scale, rather. All right. So in here, let me pull up my notes again for the black hole. There we go. So we have quite a few things to add to this curve. And I'm just fitting the curve here. And then I'm just going to zoom out a little bit, give myself some space. And we're going to select the very first node at time 0. And we want it to start at 0 because we want it to increase. There we go. That's what we're looking for. And then we know at the end, we want it to be at 0. So this is something that I really like to do. So we're going to set the time to 0.58 and set the value to 0. This way it gives us a start and a stop to work with. And let's go ahead and set our second one to 0.2 at 0.95. This is going on for a very long time. And I'm just going to set the, I'm going to clamp this down so we got to get this repeat happening so we can see stuff a little bit faster. There we go. That's looking pretty good. So let's add another key to this curve. We can just right click on the curve, add key to curve. And this one is going to be at time 0.5 and at a value of 1.4. Okie doke. And let's see, we have 0.2. Missed one here. So we're going to right click between our first two, add a key. This one's going to be at 0.1. And we're going to set this to 1.3. So we're going to get this rapid increase, a little bit of a decrease, and then increase again, and then a quick collapse. So we're not quite seeing that collapse because we have it clamped down. So let's take our clamp, grab it here, move it out of the way. There we go. Let's reselect my emitter here. Now, this isn't quite smooth. So what we want to do is select all of our notes here, our little keyframes here, and right-click on them and select Auto. And that's going to give you a nice smooth curve in between. And then now we could take these tangents and just move them around a little bit until we get something that we like. You can modify this however you want, and you can get some pretty crazy effects by just changing some of these tangent lines. Let's work with that. I like that. So basically, I just changed the second to last one, and I just increased this angle by just a little bit here. I think it was set up to maybe here. So you see, as I increase this, I'm going to get a little more of an oomph before it. There we go. Let's go ahead and change this color as well. And the color will be a nice pink color, but you can change this to whatever you want. And our values are going to be 3.5 on the red, 0 on the green, and 2.3 on the blue. And this nice pink color. I dig it. And that's it. That's it for the black hole. We made some little bit of tweaks to the size and scale. So let's see if we can maybe get everything else working here. So we have these waves here. Why aren't my vertical waves working? Let's see. Might just have to re-import them. Let's see here. Vertical waves. Vertical waves seem to be working inside of my emitter. All right, let's right-click on these and delete. And we're going to add a track, emitters. And we're going to select vertical waves again, just to re-add it. See if I can get them to come back here. Where are they? Oh, are they just super tiny? I think they're just super tiny. Yeah, they're just super tiny. Okay, that's the problem. That's no big deal. Okay, let's just do the normal waves first. So make sure you have your waves selected down here in your timeline. Double check it up here in the top. And let's go ahead and change the color first. I want that real nice blue color. And we're just going to do really emissive blue, and we're just going to taper it off into a much tamer blue. So we're going to right-click on this first node here. Make sure your time is set to 0, and go to Choose Color. And under blue, we're just going to select 100. Crazy emissive blue. And I think here, yeah, it's our set variables under our scale. There we go. And our scale is just really off here. Wonder why it's so off. Let's see. Do I have the right plane? Basic shapes plane. It's just super small. Let's see. I just set this to a 2, 2, 2. Just want to be able to at least see it before we start making modifications to it. Let's turn off our black hole. It's a little distracting. There we go. Okay. So let's mess around with this color. Okay, so I've ran into this problem with the color before, where you don't quite, you're modifying different RGB values, and for some reason it just doesn't want to add a key to all of the frames, or all of the color lines rather. So what we're going to do is select this, show this curve in the curves tab, and what we can see here is we have a little bit of a mess up. We're going to select all of them and hit delete. And then at the end, we're going to right click, add key to all curves. I'm going to delete the opacity. This ending is going to be at 0.9, I think is what I had it set to. Let me double check. Yeah, 0.9. I'm going to right click over here, add key to all curves. Remove the opacity, right click it, go to time 0, choose color, and this color is going to be that super emissive blue. So we're going to set 1, 1, and then 100 to blue. And for some reason, I still have these white values still coming in. It's very strange. Let's see here. See what's going on here in this curve. I'm going to fit this curve. get rid of, there we go. So I'm going to get rid of the other frames here. I'm just going to work directly into this curve editor. I've had a lot of issues with these curve editors before. All right, so we're just going to right click in here and just add a key to the color curve blue. And at time 0.19, we're going to set this emissive color to 20. So we're going to really ramp it down. I'm going to right click here, add a key to 0.6 at the time, and the value will be 1. So we're just really going to ramp it down. Okay. Now we're looking pretty good. We'll see if we can not get that to happen on the other waves. And let's go ahead and mess with this scaling as well. We're going to set the first one, make sure it's set to 0, 0. Second one, we're going to set it to 0.23 on the time and 1.3 on the scale. There we go. And then the last one, we're just going to set this to a value of 2. So it's just going to stretch out for a pretty long ways. So we're going to explode up and then slowly taper down. Reset our scale to 1, 1, and 1. Get it back to normal. That's looking pretty normal. Let's bring our black hole back in. Black hole's looking a little big. Let me make sure my scaling is right on the black hole. So we'll select it here. Looking okay. Let's see what our first value is. 1.3. Is that looking good? 1.3. It's just a little big. Let's turn it off for now. And I'm going to set the values and everything else and then just modify the black hole scaling and just to see if we can get it all to fit and tie together. All right, let's look at these textured waves. And the textured waves, we want them to be a bit bigger than the other waves that we have, the blue ones. So the first thing I'm going to want to do here is I'm going to right click on this white here on the color. We're going to set choose color. And we're going to make this like a pink. We'll do pink, I think, is what I had originally set for this. And the first one is going to be 0.5 on the red, 0.05 on the green, and 0.41 on the blue. It's going to give us a nice pink color. And to make sure that I'm going to add the key to all the curves here so we don't run into the issue that we did with the blue one, I'm going to right-click, add key to all curves, and delete the opacity. Right-click on this node, and we're going to set this to 0.38 on the time. Go to choose color, and we're going to set this to 1 on the red, 0.145 on the green, and 0.786 on the blue. Let me see here. Let's turn off the vertical waves, and we'll turn off the stars as well. Okay. Is that it on the color? Yeah, that looks like it's it on the color. Let's look at this scaling. So what we want to do is we want this textured wave to sort of balloon out quite a ways and then collapse back in. And we could do some stuff to it at the very, very end to sort of give you like a poof kind of effect. So on our first verse, our first frame, our first curve, whatever, point on the curve here, sorry, we're going to set the time to 0.1, set the value to 0.95. I'm going to right click, add key to curve. On the next time, we're going to do 0.25 at a value of 1.22. I'm going to fit this here so I can get an idea here. So we're going to come up in size, and then we're going to slowly come back down. I'm going to right-click, add a new key to this curve, 0.5 on the time, 0.95 on the value. And for the final time, I'm going to set this to 1.6, and we're going to say -2. Then I want to grab all of these. Just going to click in here, grab them all, right-click, and make sure that auto is selected. And that's going to give us this ability here to just modify them just in the same ways we did with the black hole. There we go. So as we're modifying this second to last one here, what we can do is the more steep you make it, the more of that poof you're going to get at the end. Let's turn off that wave so you can really see it. See that poof there? And if we change it in the other direction, there we go. If we just get it right in the center, you're not really going to get much at all at the very end there. And down, a little bit there. Okay, so let's look at this guy. I want to change this, just tweak it just a little bit. See how that looks. Okay, I like it. Let's bring back in the black hole. The black hole is very big. It's very big. I think black hole is the problem. Let's see. Let's see what we can do here. Let's change the black hole. Make sure my scaling sizes are okay. What is my mesh scaling size? It's not 5. Should it be 5 on this one here? 5? Set it to 2. It's looking better. Not quite all lined up though in terms of the sizing and whatnot. So we're just going to change this scale curve here. Sort of balloon up the scale a little bit. If you're using different plane primitives or you have like a slightly different sizes of things, you're probably gonna have to come in here and really do a lot of fine tweaking to make sure everything lines up really well. Okay, so let's bring in the waves. Let's see what that's looking like. And they're pretty small too. So let's go ahead and jump up the scaling. There we go. That's looking pretty good. I like it. Yeah. There we go. All right. So let's work on the vertical waves. The vertical waves are very, very noisy right now. Let's zoom in on them. Let me go ahead and clamp this down so we can just get a good see. And what we want to do is very much just change the color on them and maybe change the sizing of them so they just barely wrap around that black hole. So let's make sure we have our vertical wave selected, double checking up here, right click, collapse to headers, and let's change the color. Pull up my color notes. Where's my vertical waves? There we go. And again, we're just going to change the start here, make sure our starting color is at 0. Choose color. And the color here will be, on the R, will be 0.864. On the green, 0.166. And on the blue, 0.64. It's a nice pink color. And we're just going to right-click out here, add key to all curves, delete the opacity. This timestamp, we're going to say 0.215. Choose a color. And this color is going to be 1 on the red, 0.41 on the green, 0.85 on the blue. Right click out here, add key to all curves, delete the opacity, right click it on the time, 0.45. Choose the color. Color will be 0.093 on the red, 0 on the green, 0.51 on the blue. So we're going to get this very dark pink there towards the end. All right, now let's bring in the black hole. You can see that it's just not at all coming in. So let's change our scaling. There we go. So we'll just set the scaling curve to 2. And I want to remove this stop here. I'm going to move that down so we get the full effect here. Maybe a little closer. Whoop, there we go. Let's see if we can get it. Yeah, okay, there we go. All right, let's change up this size scaling. So again, we definitely want to have it start at 0. So I want to make sure my time is set to 0. On our first key, we're going to set the time to 0.19 and the value to 1.1. And out here, we're going to set this time to 2 at a value of 0. Go ahead and fit that curve. Looking pretty good. So you have this nice kind of swirly effect. I like it. I like it. All right, let's bring in everything except for the stars. And let's just see how we're looking here. Ooh, it's spinning very fast. Let's kill the rotation rate on a lot of these. So let's go to the textured waves. We're going to scroll down here to the mesh rotation rate and see this mesh rotation rate set to 1. Let's set it to 0.1. There we go. There we go. Let's also change the waves mesh rotation rate to 0.1. Okay. Let me change, just fiddling around with some numbers here. There we go. Maybe this could be a little bit faster, maybe a little bit bigger. Always got to tweak with your numbers here. There we go. And then our vertical waves. Ooh, I changed the vertical waves. See, I didn't check myself here. It's supposed to go to the waves. Change these waves. We'll set these back down to 1, maybe 1.5. Nah, set it to 2. Okay, okay. We'll do some fine tweaking a little bit later. Let's go ahead and get the stars done. All right, bring them in. I mean, they're already looking pretty okay here. The lifetime's a bit long, I believe, is what we really need to change because they're just sort of lingering around. So let me pull up my star notes. Make sure that we have everything set correctly on our stars. Need to right-click up top, collapse to headers. Let's look at our set variables here. 1 to 1.5, that's looking okay. Spawn rate. It's the spawn rate. We want to do a spawn burst. So in our emitter update, let's click on add spawn burst. Now you can't delete modules out of a system from an emitter that's a part of a system. So we're just going to set it to 0 and uncheck it. And we'll set the spawn count to 100. And I want to make sure that looks like we're getting multiple spawnings of them. We're going to set this max loop count to 1. So we're just going to get 1 spawn of these. And that's the only thing that we're interested in. And there we go. Looking pretty okay. Let's see here. What other little values can we tweak? I mean, we can tweak stuff in here for hours. I spent several hours just tweaking values over and over and over again just to try to get something exact the way I was looking and whatnot. So we can tweak all kinds of stuff in here. We can change like the star lifetime. We can do bigger on the textured waves. Maybe we want to make those just a little bit bigger. So we'll set this to like 2.5 on the, that was the vertical wave. Let's go to our textured waves, come down here to like 2.5. Let's make it just a little bit bigger. And on the waves here, maybe bump up this rotation rate to like 0.5. We could do something like that. These values you could really just mess around with. But this at least gives you a blueprint, so to speak, onto something that you could just mess around with yourself and really just start fiddling around and tweaking these numbers. You can go real crazy on some of these. You can make some really cool effects by just coming through here and just messing with some of like these scaling values here. You know, if we just, what are we in here? We're in the waves. So we can set this value to something like 2, make it a lot bigger. So we can set this back down to 1.4. We can make it drop down a little bit slower if we wanted to. Something like that. I kind of like that already. So you kind of whoosh. I like the whoosh at the end. All kinds of stuff. So let's go ahead and compile and save. I'm going to move this out of the way. Should be able to just drag and drop this into the world now. And there we go. We have ourselves a little black hole system that isn't repeating itself. That's okay. We'll just bring it back in here. We have this wonderful black hole system that I think is just an absolute tons of fun. We have tons of different emitters in here that you could tweak all kinds of values. You can have more stars, less stars. You can make that pull amount like so much bigger. You can make tons more stars if you want to. You can change the textures on this. You can have much better textures than what I managed to make in GIMP in like 10 minutes or so. But yeah, so I think that's going to wrap it up for me. If you have any questions, comments, or any sort of suggestions or anything like that, please let me know. And if you make something out of this, send it to me. You can just post it in the comments or just send me a message. Happy to take a look at it. Absolutely love this stuff. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.